Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you, Nikki, for your wonderful introduction. Today I'd like to talk about my own lived experience of schizophrenia and my recovery from that illness. It's a recovery which is an ongoing process. Where I am now. For the past 16 odd years I've been a serial student. So I have 4 degrees. Arts, law, Masters of Journalism and a PhD in the sociology of schizophrenia. At the moment I'm employed part-time as a policy officer at an organisation called One Door Mental Health that were previously known as the Schizophrenia Fellowship. I'm employed as a tutor in sociology at Sydney Uni. I do informal work as a consumer academic, also at the University of Sydney and at opportunities like today. Public speaker about stigma and schizophrenia. I write blogs, and until recently I was a radio show host. I didn't own the radio station or run it, but I ran a show.
Oh, I tend to exaggerate.
In 2003 I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. The symptoms include seeing images of violence. I would open the door to see my girlfriend, whom I was breaking up with at the time, and I would see her face mutilated. I imagined a persecutory voice that would say, "Ha ha, you're going mad." I experienced paranoia and intrusive thoughts. One of my loves in life is the music of Bob Dylan, and one of the strangest and most upsetting experiences I had in schizophrenia was a voice saying to me, "Kill Bob Dylan." I suffered cognitive deficit, that is, my intellectual capability was lower, major depression, delusions of reference, and suicidal ideation. I'd like to read you an excerpt from the blog which I wrote for NeuRA, and you can look it up online. My first reaction was to go numb. I didn't know where I was. I went up to my room and immediately searched the internet for non-pharmaceutical treatments for schizophrenia. I had a strong belief before then that drugs altering the brain's chemistry should be avoided at all costs. I now realise that they're all but inevitable for certain serious conditions. The significance of what I was realising washed over me, a rising flood. I came back downstairs. I don't remember a great deal after that. Perhaps my mind was blanked out by the terrible experience. I remember 2 things. 1, crying tears. So many tears with my parents. I wailed like a baby. The other thing was asking my parents, why did Ormi and Orpi, my grandparents, survive the Holocaust only for this to happen? I do not know why I asked that question. I guess the Holocaust was the deepest historical event affecting my family. Perhaps I thought this was an injustice that they should be spared, only to see my life shattered. I still don't know why I said it, but it was the worst night of my life. I'd like to give you some insight into what it feels like to have schizophrenia. The experience of schizophrenia is an individualised one, and different people will have different symptoms. But these 4 symptoms that I'm going to describe for you will give you some idea of what it may be like. I'd like you to close your eyes, if you would, and imagine a voice. It could be your voice, it could be your husband or your wife's voice, your father, your mother, it doesn't matter. Imagine them saying, "Hello, how are you?" Now imagine that this voice knows about your weaknesses and your foibles and your fears and the things that you've done in your life that you're not proud of. And now imagine that the voice talks to you all the time and persecutes you about all those things that you are not proud of, and persecutes you without release and without cease. For many people, the experience of hearing of voices is similar to what I've just described to you. The second type of experience which I'd like to try and explain to you is delusions of reference. Imagine a bowl of Smarties, red Smarties, with a couple of orange ones in it. Now it's natural when you look at that bowl, the orange ones are going to probably stand out from the red ones. That's pretty much how we look at it. Now imagine you're looking at that bowl and the orange ones are spelling letters, which is pretty strange. Now imagine you're looking at the bowl of Smarties, but the orange letters are forming your own name. That's a bit like what it's like when you have a delusion of reference. And for example, you watch a television and it seems like there is a message there specifically for you. The third aspect that I would try and like to explain with this, with a metaphor, is that imagine that you're seeing the world through a veil or a blanket. You're present, but you're not present. Your mind is there, but your mind is wrapped up in itself. Your mind is not there. You are where you are, but you are somehow not where you are at the same time. The final thing I'd like you to try and imagine is that you had your thoughts broadcast, so that everyone around you could work out or could hear or could see or know exactly what you were thinking, and how disturbing that would be. And again, I talk about the negative things in your life, the things that you're not proud of. Imagine those were broadcast too. There is one more thing which I would like to try and explain, but I haven't worked out a metaphor for it, but it's to imagine that you are not in control of your own mind. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of what the experience of schizophrenia is like. I'll talk now a little about my time in the clinic. I'm lucky enough to have two determining factors which have helped my recovery to no end. One is private health insurance, and two is having the most wonderful parents in the world. Having private health insurance is very important because our psychiatric clinics or psychiatric wards in hospitals are not doing the jobs that they should be doing in the majority or in a significant amount of cases. So I was in the Sydney clinic, which is down in Bronte, on and off for about 3 months. I spent a first period there, then I came out. I think I travelled a bit with mum and dad and my brother, and then I went back in. A lot of the time I was sedated and my memories weren't particularly clear. I know that it was actually a calm place, and a lot of the nurses and staff were really nice and good people. One of them said to me, people with schizophrenia need not too much stimulation but not too little stimulation, which I thought was an interesting insight. So it was a calm place, but it was filled with strange people. I remember one man in particular who would stand in front of me and laugh manically, as if I had done something wrong or funny or I don't know what, but I found it incredibly disturbing. So clinics are places of healing, but they're also places where you're going to meet a lot of other people who are not doing particularly well in life right at that moment. So my recovery began, as most journeys in schizophrenia do in our society, with medication. Very briefly, I tried risperidone. In fact, it was only for one night. That was recommended by my doctor. When I came into the clinic and met with the psychiatrist, they recommended Zyprexa. Zyprexa is an interesting antipsychotic medication because it works particularly well for people who have marijuana-induced psychosis. And I do admit I smoked a bit of pot before I got sick. Not a great deal, but enough that they thought that they should give Zyprexa a try. Didn't work. So that probably indicates that I did not have a pot-induced psychosis. There was another drug. It might have been Seroquel, I can't remember. Finally, I was prescribed clozapine, also known as Clozaril, I think. Initially in a small dose, and my psychiatrist's style, the way he would prescribe, was to then push up to a very high dose. So I was on 600 milligrams, and I stayed on 600 milligrams for a number of years. And probably about 5 or 6 years ago, that's me up there. 5 or 6 years ago, I cut it back to 500 milligrams. clopine is an interesting drug because it's very effective for a lot of people with schizophrenia, but has the unfortunate side effect that it can cause a loss in white blood cell count. So you have to do a blood test every month and see a psychiatrist every month when you're taking the medication. So I still have blood tests every month. And I've taken clopine every night of my life for 13 years. I want to stress the importance of medication. No. I want to stress the importance of my parents, because it was their love and their support, ongoing, unconditional, that has helped me through the rockiest of days. But perhaps it was clopine that sort of saved my life. By removing the positive symptoms, like delusions, I was able to return to a much calmer state, and suicidal ideation lost its intensity. I responded very well to clopine, and I have been able to live a productive and active life since, with the proviso that I sleep 12 hours a day. So I can't work full time, which is a bit sad. Now, I recognise that medication may not work for all people, and there may be different reasons for that I don't understand, and my colleagues who spoke could speak to why that is, but for me, clopine was a game changer. At this point, I would also like to make a comment about anxiety and depression. Schizophrenia is often comorbid with other physical and mental diseases. They're sometimes called satellite illnesses. For me, these were depression and anxiety. I won't talk much about these as my focus is on schizophrenia, but I would like to say that antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication has helped me be here in front of you today, as has having a great GP whom I trust deeply and who helps me. So, more recovery, coming to terms with schizophrenia. I have a story, and it's actually a bit of a funny story. I was having trouble with the idea that I had schizophrenia. It was a very disturbing idea. The word itself made me very uncomfortable. So I went to see a psychologist, and she said, say banana 20 times fast. I said, okay, banana, 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 banana. She said, okay, now say schizophrenia 20 times fast. Schizophrenia, 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 schizophrenia. And somehow, the impact of repeating this word over and over again somehow took away from it some of its sting, some of its stigma for me. So that was part of my recovery. Another important factor was my decision to become a consumer advocate on the behalf of other people with schizophrenia who may not be able to talk openly and publicly. And it was in fact, whilst walking around this park, Centennial Park, next to where I live, where I made that decision that I would be a consumer advocate, and that's why these pictures are up here today. I guess becoming a consumer advocate meant that I could turn the worst thing in my life into one of the best things. So some of the stuff that I've done, did an Australian story with Cindy many years ago. I did a tour of us with my dad. I've been blogging for NeuRA and One Door. And I've been interviewed on the ABC for Mental Health Week, I think about 2 years ago. I have some parting thoughts. I've tried to show to you how important medication was in the experience and recovery from schizophrenia in my circumstances. However, not all people will respond well to medications. There are significant side effects, and I've mentioned the amount that I sleep. It also makes me put on weight, which is a bit unfortunate. And medications, whilst very effective for me, may not deal with all the symptoms for all people. My response to this problem is that we must support further research into the whole spectrum of schizophreniform illnesses. So schizophrenia, psychotic depression, schizoaffective disorder, and so forth. And I believe that one day, with the work that is being done, we will have a cure or many cures. And that's what I pray for. Thank you.